People ask me, is it a difficult business? And I say, yes, it is. It can be extremely difficult to make $50,000 a year, but it is the easiest business ever to make $500,000 a year. And it's very, very simple. You just need the structure, you need the sales process and presentation, you need people to sell to, hold yourself accountable, have goals, and you can make money. Like you truly can make money. And I do, and I'm not a sales guy.
Today, I have Thomas joining me. And Thomas, his best personal month was over $110,000 in AP. And that was personal production, not a team's production. He averages over $750,000 a year on his personal pen. And he works with Blackrock. So I want to talk about what a real top producer actually cares about. Not the excitement or fake leaderboards, not recruiting noise. Hard work, structure, clean systems. And what happens when an agency is more interested in using a producer's name than actually helping him win. Thomas has been burned before. He's had agents thrown at him before the structure was ready. And that team rolled up over $300,000 in bad business. He had to rebuild from that. So now he's here. And one of the things that I respect is that he doesn't need nonsense. He needs a system that works, problems caught early, and people around him who care about his success and not just his production. So Thomas, I appreciate you coming on today.
Great to be here, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks, man. So before we get into Blackrock, can you give people the real version of your production background?
So it's actually a little bit different for me because I kind of did the whole insurance thing on a whim. So I guess we go back to where it all started. So before I started getting into insurance, I was with Shell. And I was very, very fortunate when I graduated college to get a position with them as a director of operations for the Northeast. So basically, I was in charge of all their stores, all their automotive facilities and things like that between Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. And it was really great. It was wonderful. I was making a good amount of money. I was making about $150,000 a year. And it was really, really good. The problem is you get to a point where you want more and you always want more. So for anyone to tell me that, I have enough, I always say you're foolish because you never can have enough, right? And it's not to be greedy. I'm not a greedy guy, but you always want more because you never know, what's going to happen tomorrow. You never know. Like you don't know, right? So I want to make as much as I can while I can. To do that, I would have to do two things. I'd have to work 6 days a week, which not an issue, I don't mind. But I would have to move to Texas and I would have to stay in their office. So there's two issues with that. One, I'm not a Texas guy. And then the second thing is I'm not an office guy. I can't be in an office all day long. I just can't. I have to be moving around. I have to be doing things. Even now, like when I take calls and whatnot, it's not in an office. So I just incorporate everything into my day. So I knew insurance was where it was at. So what I ended up doing was I took a severance and I kind of put everything, on myself. And I said, look, I want to do this. So I put my resume on Monster. And within maybe an hour, I got a call from a recruiter with New York Life out of their Rye, New York office. And I was excited, right? Because again, I really knew nothing about insurance. So I had a 20-minute conversation with her. And she said, well, we want you to come in tomorrow for an interview. I said, great, no problem. So what I ended up doing was I went to the store. I bought a yellow legal notepad. And, so I didn't look like that the next day. I wanted to make sure I could, Google as much as I can about insurance. So that's what I did. Like literally the whole night, I didn't sleep. I was up all night Googling, finding everything I could about insurance because I knew nothing about it. And I literally filled up the whole yellow pad. Went for the interview the next day. They liked me. The whole premise was treat people like they're your parents or your grandparents, right? So took the test, passed it. And then I started the following Monday in New York. So it was really interesting because you go in there and you see like this really beautiful building and all these things, and you see all these people in their suits and everything. And I call it like a bullpen, and everyone's there. And there was a guy that was next to me. His name was Wing. And I asked him, I said, Wing, I just start today. And I'm just curious as to why everyone is like here. Should they be like, doing something? And again, I had no idea what insurance really was. And he's like, well, they're here because they have no one to sell to, right? So this was what? This was 12 years ago? Yeah, this was 12 years ago. So I had no idea what a lead was. I had no idea whatsoever. So I picked up a phone book and I started with A. And I made myself a really, really simple script. And what I would do is I would just call people and I would tell them who I was, where I worked, what I could do for them if you have any interest. And it took me, I think I dialed maybe 900 people that day to make one sale. And I was burnt out. And this was, I got to that office at 7:45 a.m. I started dialing at 8:10 a.m. And I remember this clearly. I left the office at 8:20 p.m. It was tough. It was grueling, but I had to try it. And what I did was Monday through Friday from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I would stand out there during people's lunch hours. Let me tell you, it teaches you to have leather skin really, really quickly because you hear people say drop dead, all these things. This is New York, right? And, you do that when it's raining, you do that when it's cold. It worked a little bit, but, maybe it got me to write like 2 or 3 apps a week, right? If that really wasn't a lot. And I kept saying to myself, I got to try to make this work because this is crazy. Like, I'm not going to get anywhere doing this. So one of the guys that I work with, his name was Mark. He gave me a call probably like 2 weeks later. And he's like, listen, man, he goes, I got hooked up with this company in Jersey and, we're selling a product called Final Expense and it's for the 50 and older crowd. And I was very ignorant because I said to him, I said, listen, man, I didn't leave a really, really good paying job to sell lowball policies to old people. Like, that's just not what I did. This is not what I want. He goes, listen, come out with me. You'll be hooked. I said, okay. So I met him in Yonkers and I went out with him. He had this duffel bag full of direct mailers, and these things were torn, these things were ripped. And I met him, at a prospect's house. I guess he already called and set the appointment, and I went in there with him. And within a half hour, he did his presentation and whatnot. He made a quick $500. After that, I was sold. So these things that they gave me were discolored, they were torn, they were ripped. I mean, these things were old. And when I asked how old, anywhere from 2 to 6 years old. So what I did was I got 40 of them a week. I got my 40 and I would call 3 times a day and I would have a very apologetic approach. I would set the appointment and I would sell. So I did $136,000 with them in 3 months. After the first month, I think I did 45,000 my first month. Everyone was like, how the hell is he doing that? Right. And I told them exactly how I did it, what my process was. Right. They had me train some other people there. No issues, no problems. But this is also like an aggressive form of selling. I can be aggressive when I have to be aggressive, but at the same time, I treat people like they're my parents and my grandparents. I do. Right. I'm not a sales guy. So after the first month, they started giving me fresh leads, significantly easier, direct mailers. But it got to a point where I was their cash cow. And this was at a 50% contract. And then it's like you start really looking into things and you're like, wow, 80%, 90%, 100%. It's like I could do the same thing I'm doing right now, except make more money. I can go out and buy my leads. And that's kind of like what I did. So I just contracted with a bunch of different companies and was just an independent agent. And that's kind of what I did for, 8 years. It was all face-to-face sales. I did really well. What I ended up doing was I would I would try to really focus on Connecticut, but there was plenty of money in New York. There was plenty of money in Pennsylvania. There was plenty of money in New Jersey. So what I would do is I would commute. The face-to-face is good. You spend tons of behind the wheel time, and it becomes really, really counterproductive. And then I got into telesales. And the reason why I got into telesales wasn't to be lazy. It was because I can do more with telesales than I ever could with face-to-face. Meaning, if I'm getting a good amount of inbounds a day, a good amount of transfers a day, I can convert those. And the way I look at it is if I'm getting, let's just say, transfers a day that are solid, that's the equivalency of 10 appointments a day, right? That's the equivalency of 10 people that I called, that I set the appointment for, that showed up, that let me in and give a presentation, right? And I don't care what anyone says. If you're doing face-to-face, you are not setting 10 appointments a day. You're not. You're burnt out after like 3 or 4 appointments, especially if you're doing a whole state. So I got into telesales, and for me, it was just a winning ticket. And here I am. I'll never look back. Because again, I could do more with telesales than I ever could with face to face. So and for me, it's the future. And that's it. It's easy. It just comes easy for me now. This is very simple. At first, it was tough because it was over the phone, but it's easy. It's not hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how the transition from a large corporate job to a small organization that was only giving you 50% commissions and wasn't giving you access to leads, right? They were old, recycled, it
Old
was garbage, right?
garbage.
And then you made the transition to telesales, taking inbound calls, and it just transformed everything because you can only take
Completely.
10 calls in one day and you can end up writing $20,000 a week, right?
Let me tell you, my best week selling face to face, my best week. Everything went right, no issues, no problems. My best week in the 8 years that I did face to face sales was a little over $11,000. That was my best week. The best week that I had in telesales was 32,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't
Massive
compare.
difference.
Massive difference. Massive.
Right. Right. It's about efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, as a top producer, what do you actually look for in an agency or an IMO?
So with me, it's a little bit different because I don't really require a lot. The one thing that I don't want to be is a cash cow. And that's pretty much what any agency and IMO is really looking for. So, I'm not one of these guys that goes from company to company and they make excuses because this one has poor leads or this one gave a shit contract, whatever the case may be. I look for the integrity. And then, I think what's most important to me is what I have found with you guys. Even though I don't really need anything, I know that if there's something that I need, I can text you, I can call you, and you're going to pick up the phone. Because I can tell you right now, especially for a new agent, you sign on the dotted line, they tell you everything that you want to hear, but good luck trying to get in contact with these people at like 5 o'clock on a Friday. They just don't pick up the phone. Like they don't. It's like a one and done. You guys, and especially with you, I just know that if there's something that I need, and you work around the clock, so I knew that if there's something that I need, whatever the case is, and I text you and I call you, you pick up the phone. And for me, that's huge. It doesn't. It's not about for me. It's not about the contract percent. It's really not about that. It's the integrity that you guys have, and it's just the fact that if I need something, I know that I can depend on you guys, and that's really what it is. And it's really important to me. So, and it's been great so far.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's impossible to produce at a high level if you don't have a support structure around you
Yeah, yeah,
because there was some things that whenever we started working together, you noticed, but you didn't necessarily talk about it. You weren't really like digging deeper into it. I was like,
yeah,
"Hey, I've got a report that's saying this. Can
yeah,
I help you in a different way?" And you're like, "Yeah, yeah, actually there is a way if we do this." And I said, "Perfect, let's do that, but let's also do this as well. That way we can capture some of that revenue back." Right?
yeah.
Which has definitely shown, and I've seen a massive uptick in placed business now in comparison to what we had before. And it's just, I took a couple of minutes to look at the reports and make some suggestions. And then I reached out to you, and you're talking about at 5 o'clock on a Friday. I think I texted you at like 11 o'clock on Friday night, and I was
You did,
like,
yeah, you did,
"Hey, I've got, I've got an idea." I was like, "I've got an
yeah.
idea. I'm taking a look, and I want to help you out so that we can make more money." Right
You
now,
gotta, the thing of it is, a lot of people too, they don't really. You gotta treat this as a business, and it is a business. And people ask me, is it a difficult business? And I say, yes, it is. It is the most. It is extremely. It can be extremely difficult to make $50,000 a year, but it is the easiest business ever to make $500,000 a year. And it's very, very simple. And you just need the structure, you need the sales process and presentation, you need people to sell to, hold yourself accountable, have goals, and you can make money. Like you truly can make money. And I do. And I'm not a sales guy. So you don't need sales experience. You really don't. You just have to be coachable and you have to be motivated to make money for yourself, change your life. You'll do well. It's just not, it's a no brainer. Like it
absolutely.
really, really is. I mean, this is not, people say, well, this is hard work. It's not hard work. I mean, construction is hard work. You live in Florida, so it's kind of like, we see people on 95 jackhammering in 102-degree weather. That's hard work. Like that's hard work. This
Yeah.
isn't hard at all.
And that's exactly how I've described it for years, right?
Yeah,
I could be destroying my body doing my job,
yeah,
or I could be making sure that I keep myself level, making sure that I approach it in a smart and emotionally rational way and make a lot of money.
yeah.
Now, you've been burned before
Oh,
because you were being handed agents before the structure was ready, right? So they kind
yeah.
of made something out to look like a gift and they handed you a group of agents.
It wasn't a
Let's
gift.
talk about what happened and what did that teach you?
So when it comes to bringing agents on board, again, I'm a realist and I know what's out there. I know how agents think and how agents work. And honestly, 90% of agents are lazy. They really are. And it's tough, but that's what the reality is. It's that 10% of agents that are really willing to go through the trenches and do what has to be done to really be successful. And there's not really a lot of us, right? That's why you have like a certain amount of people that produce a certain amount of money. It's not because they're handed anything, it's because of their work ethic, right? So, I was very naive when I started getting into all this, and what I would always pay attention to was my production. And I wouldn't really think of like the back office things, and I didn't. So I was with a company, and they saw that I was a top producer, and one of the higher ups reached out to me and said, "Listen, we got a group of people that, they see your numbers, and we think that if you coach them, if you can get them trained and tweak them, we can really get to a different level with them, and you can really help them change." So I said, "Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really not going to take any time, out of my day. Not an issue. Always happy to help people." So I did. So I kind of coached them, and I gave them my sales process and my presentation, and trained them, and they started to really, really perform. What everyone failed to tell me was that what happened next really, and sorry, but that's the only way I can say it, because I was then asked, "Hey, you know what? You did a great job. You trained these guys. They're really getting it. How would you like them in your hierarchy?" I said, "Yeah, why not? Why the hell not, right?" What I was failed to be told was their debt that they had prior to now becomes my debt. And that was very, very tough. And it really, it does, it really puts you in a bind. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, am I paying it? Yeah. Am I
Mm.
responsible for it? Yeah. I'm not going to cry about it. It's my fault because I should have asked questions and I didn't ask, but I am extremely cautious now. Now I look at everything, like I really do, because I won't make the same
Mm.
mistake again. Um, and that's why
Yeah.
when it comes to like
How much was
bringing
that
people,
debt?
oh my God, almost 300,000. It's a lot of debt. There's a lot of debt from these guys, and these were
Yeah.
guys, and it's very unfortunate, but these were guys and girls that had multiple companies, multiple carriers, and they would just run up debt, 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 and that's, yeah. So it's a tough pill to swallow, and it
So,
it sucks,
so
but
they
it
rolled
is what
up
it
the
is.
debt. When you assumed the debt, did
Yep.
they already have the debt on the books and then that came over to you immediately, or did they accrue the
Yeah.
debt
No,
after
they
starting
they
to work under your
they
hierarchy?
they literally, that debt literally got within like a week, like literally within like a week, like all their debt became my debt, because once I brought them on, I mean their production was like little to nothing, and the only thing I can think of when I look back at it now is like, well, it's kind of like they, whatever happened with that IMO with these people, it's like they probably jumped ship, went to another IMO, and or they just bailed on insurance altogether. But I mean, it sucks, like it does.
Mhm.
So I mean, anyone that watches this, just be when you
Yeah.
when you go when you're bringing people on board or when you're training people, whatever the case is, always look at everything. Don't make this mistake, because it's a very costly mistake. So yeah,
Now, that's definitely something that's really tough, but you handle it the right way. You set up payment options and you're still able to produce and make money and do well, right? So
yeah.
it was a very difficult situation, but you were able to move on from that. Now, after transferring to BlackRock, what stood out to you about the structure here?
So, I mean, you guys, it's when you stop and think about it. I mean, everyone says the right things, and I'll be honest. The majority of people behind like YouTube videos, they're full of shit. They are. They'll tell you anything you want to hear to get you to sign the dotted line, right? They will do that. You guys were completely different. So, with BlackRock, it's just very different, very, very different. I mean, the structure is there. You run everything the way it should be ran. You have everything in place. You have a sales process for those that need it. You have a presentation for those that need it. You have a kick-ass lead source. So basically, you guys are literally a one-stop shop. I mean, if you contract with BlackRock, you never have to have contracts with any other IMO, any other agency. You really don't. Honestly, you don't. Because I don't know of any agent that wants to go from company to company to company. I don't. I mean, for me, it's just stupid. I'd rather have all contracts under one, agency, and it just makes life a lot easier, like it does. And the other thing too is, you don't really need, with you don't, you're not, with you personally, you're not pushy. Like that's not who you are. You don't push me, to buy leads and hound me to buy leads. You don't push me to sign all these contracts. And the majority of people, that's what they do. And the reason why they do that, you already know, it's not in the interest of the agent. It's because they want to tie up all your contracts. And when it gets to the point where you realize that what they told you, they're full of shit, what happens? They say, well, if you want to go to another agency, you can, but you got to wait a year. So if you want to wait a year, wait a year. If not, then you're going to produce for me. And that's the attitude, that real baby, adolescent attitude. And that's the thing, because I've always told agents too, you don't need all these carriers. You need like maybe 2 or 3 carriers with a GI, and that's it, you're done. Like, what is the purpose? And you don't want to get yourself into debt either. So that's all you need. You get your 2 main carriers, you get your GI, you're good to go. That's it.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you for that. And the structure really is a big difference. And it's structure without being overbearing, right?
Yeah.
We go through, I try to help, I try to support, and I instill a little bit of structure in the middle of the chaos. We try to make a complicated thing simple, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are still some agencies out there, and they're claiming that you still work with them, but you are here at Blackrock. So
I am.
What would you say to agents watching that are trying to figure out who's actually telling the truth?
So right now, I am 100% with Blackrock, plain and simple. I'm not producing for any other agency. I'm not producing for any other IMO. I'm 100% with Blackrock, under Blackrock, using Blackrock's carriers, and that's it. And to be quite honest, there's no reason for me to go anywhere else. That's it. So, any videos that are out there, I mean, look at the date. I mean, they're outdated. They're not current. This is going to be current. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand. Yeah, when it comes to the outdated videos, I don't understand what the purpose is. To keep, bringing them up and keep presenting them like they're new. I mean, what happened a year ago is what happened a year ago. What I did a year ago was a year ago. It's not now. You know what I mean? That's the thing. So it's like we focus on the now, and things change, and right now it's good. I'm in a good place. I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really require a lot, but it's nice to know that I'm with an organization that actually gives a shit. They just don't base things on your production, because the majority of these IMOs and these agencies, it's kind of like they'll know you by what you produce. Thomas? Who? Thomas. We don't know Thomas. The guy that did 20,000. I was like, oh yeah, him. And that's wrong. You know what I mean? So things that and then you see all these videos. A lot of the videos that you see, they're all bullshit. They are. We got 20 inbounds, made 20 sales, made $20,000. In that day, one person. Come on, it's not realistic.
Right.
You're setting up a new agent to fail. That's not right. This is simple, hard work. You have to have a schedule. You have to be true to your schedule. You have to be organized, and you have to want to win. You do, and that's it. You're gonna have great days. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have bad days, and that's why there's certain people that look at things differently when it comes to this. Me, it's like I have to work every day because tomorrow's not guaranteed. I may do $8,000, on a Tuesday, and nothing on a Wednesday. So you don't know. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. So make as much as you can while you can doing this, and have fun doing it. I mean, this is it's very simple, not hard. I think too, Brandon.
Absolutely,
I think
man.
a lot of people overcomplicate it too. Can't overcomplicate it.
Yeah,
this is simple.
Absolutely. So, Thomas, I appreciate you sharing all of this information, and I think that your story matters because top producers don't need more noise. And they don't need to be used for recruiting. They don't need people throwing them agents without structure. They need real systems, clean support, honest leadership, and people who care about protecting what they've built. And here at Blackrock, we're not just interested in just attaching ourselves to someone's production. We're interested in helping serious producers build better, cleaner, and with more structure. So if you're an insurance agent or a producer who wants a real environment instead of nonsense, reach out directly here. You can go to blackrockins.com. That's blackrockins.com. And we can see if Blackrock is the right fit for you.